when Bob Iger suddenly and out of the blue stepped back as CEO of the entire Disney Corporation and appointed another Bob, namely Bob Chapek, in his place. Many were hopeful that Bob number 2 would be able to clean up house, do some restructuring, maybe get rid of one Kathleen Kennedy, and restore some order to the House of Mouse. That was the hope. There are some indications that hope might have been premature. With me to discuss that is Tom.
Hello, and as Gary likes to say, hope is not a strategy.
Indeed. And breaking that down for us in more detail is the insipid detective, Geeky Candy. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me on. Always love being on Midnight's Edge, so glad to be here again.
Always love having you on, and it's also a pleasure to have you outside of just the Toxic Femininity podcast, which you all should be checking out if you don't already.
That's a fun one. Yes, definitely show up there. It's a good time.
Absolutely. But, Candy, tell us, what is up with Disney and Bob Chapek?
Well, so I think this was the day that we really got our introduction to Bob 2.0. And I like to say Bob 1.0, Bob 2.0. It's easier for me. For a company that touts its diversity, for the masses, to go from one older white gentleman named Bob to another older white gentleman named Bob, it just seems appropriate to continue on Bob 1.0 on Bob 2.0. Anyway, today was the day we kind of got to get a little insight because they had their annual shareholders meeting. And I was listening to that live, and I have to say, I was not prepared to hear the onslaught of upset, really, in the questions that were directed towards the Bobs over the handling of Disney as of recent. So I did a little digging, and I've got some fun stuff to share on your channel about that today.
And we're looking greatly forward to it. I haven't had time to do much research on it. I've only seen some things in the passing since we agreed to move the initial stream that you had planned over to this channel. So
yes, thank you for everyone that joined me here. Thank you.
Yeah, so be sure to help share and get everyone over to this stream right now. So take us through it.
Well, I'm going to start off here right around the 8-minute mark. And that's so they had 5 proposals that the board of directors and the shareholders proposed for this annual meeting. All of them passed except for one. And the one that did not pass was the only one brought to by the shareholders themselves regarding disclosing their lobbying efforts. So I found that very interesting. They do not want to disclose that in the least bit. And they shot it down real quick. But I wanted you to hear at least a little bit of the impassioned request to have it disclosed, because they were concerned about perceptions of Disney, I guess, based on the money they spent. So I'm trying to see if I can get it to play, though. I guess, do I just do this? There we go.
For this amendment
Here we go.
That plan. The next item is a shareholder proposal presented by the Congregation of the Sisters of St. Agnes.
And we'll hear just a little bit of it, but you can hear her,
set forth in the
how she feels about it.
I understand that Ebony Perkins, a representative of the shareholder, is here to present the proposal, and I would like to invite her to do so now. I would ask that she limit the presentation to 5 minutes.
And we're just going to listen to just a tidbit, maybe not even a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I am Ebony Perkins, and I live here in Raleigh, North Carolina. On behalf of the Congregation of Sisters of St. Agnes and 8 investor co-filers, I hereby move item 5, asking our company to report on its state and federal lobbying expenditures, including indirect funding of lobbying through trade associations. We believe transparency and accountability regarding corporate spending to influence public policy are in the best interest of Disney shareholders. How companies like Disney lobby and spend money to impact regulators and legislators should be public, not hidden. Unfortunately, Disney does not issue a comprehensive report about its own direct lobbying. That data is scattered among federal and state regulators and is difficult to obtain. But we do know that since 2010, Disney has spent more than $37.6 million on federal lobbying. Disney's federal lobbying, has been described as so effective that the United States changed its copyright law twice, once in 1976 and again in 1998. But there is incomplete disclosure about spending at the state level where our company also lobbies.
So she continues basically talking about how it, especially in Florida, the amount of money they spend on lobbying is really a concern that it's not disclosed. And it was the only proposal that had a recommendation by the board of directors, of course, to have their shareholders basically vote it down. So that was just the first one. And I thought that was interesting because it literally was the only proposal proposed by the shareholders. And that was the only one that didn't pass. Now, the salaries proposal all passed, even though it was by a narrow margin. I believe 44% were against the proposed salary for Bob Iger and Bob 1.0 and Bob 2.0 because of some issues, I guess, with the amount of money he was taking over the past couple years. And he even took a 30% decrease in the last year. And some people are saying that it was still way too much. So that was just the beginning part. And then they start to get into the questions of it. So did y'all want to mention and talk about the lobbying efforts of Disney, or do you want to move on to some of the more pertinent questions?
I have one huge question there. What the hell is Disney lobbying for? That's what I want to know. Much more interested in how much they spend on it is what the hell is a company like Disney lobbying for? Is it regulations or lifting regulations for their theme parks or
Most
for
likely
movie ratings or stuff like that? Or is there something else? Because when we don't know, then we're left to speculate. And speculating is fun, but it may not always lead us down the right rabbit hole, to put it that way. So that's what I would really like to know. What are they lobbying for? But we can get back to that right now. Let's just move on.
Yeah,
I love how she also brought up public perception of the company as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important part of it, because if you don't know, then speculation can run rampant, and then people's biases can take over and make judgments on the big on these big companies. And I think that's a normal thing to think about in this day and age, especially with social media. So, moving on though.
Absolutely, and perception-wise, there's more things to get into here, but we'll get to that in due course.
So this one was a big one. This one covers the perception of bias that Disney has towards conservatives in general. And I'm going to just play this one. This one probably the one we hear the most, because I thought it was the most interesting question in its entirety and had the most interesting answer. And I want y'all to tell me if you thought that it was somewhat dismissive, the answer. So let's see if I can get that one up here. And
yeah, let's have it.
And he identifies himself as a socialist. And who can forget when Project Veritas released a video last fall of acclaimed journalist Amy Robach, clearly implying that ABC bosses spiked her story on accused pedophile Jeffrey Epstein because of Epstein's close relationship.
I mean, it gets real quick here.
While she tried to walk back her comments, we all heard the truth. Mr. Chapek, I've been coming to this meeting for years, imploring Mr. Iger to address the extreme anti-conservative bias that runs deep at ABC. I'm asking you to be bold today. Take on this challenge. The public's trust in the mainstream media has just hit another all-time low. And when leaked videos show that your own reporters are frustrated because they're unable to tell the truth on the air, that speaks to a systemic problem at ABC. What steps can you take to return objectivity to ABC News? And when can we expect to see balanced coverage once again on your airwaves?
There's a lot of applause for that
Ooh, I
question.
like that
Interestingly
applause.
enough,
Yeah.
the very first trip I took after I got the new job was to ABC News in New York.
I'm going to stop that right there. The very first trip that he took, as this is Bob 2.0 speaking. I want to make sure that that's put into, consideration here on who's talking. And he went straight to New York to ABC, the first item of business for him as the new CEO. So,
New York.
there you go.
And I must say I was overwhelmed by their professionalism and their commitment to objectivity. In terms of Mr. Wright, he said some things that made us question his objectivity. And obviously, when you're reporting the news, that's no place for somebody who's got a heavy subjective opinion. So internally, we dealt with that situation. But I think that ABC News has a stellar track record of being objective in reporting the news, and it'll continue in the future.
That's the answer.
Yeah, that was a pretty dismissive thing. That was like, yeah, okay. We're worried about bias. There's no bias. Next.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's dismissing a shareholder's legitimate question with reference to things actually in the media. And what I find disturbing with that is that you can point to hard data with the lack of or declining trust in mainstream media. And ABC, again, I'm not based in the US. There are some American media I know very, very well. ABC is not among them. So their level of bias I cannot comment to. But what I can comment to is when a shareholder asks this question in an open forum and it's rejected in such a way, it certainly suggests that it's not a priority to do anything with that bias. And that combined with the lobbying, that has me thinking. Tom, your thoughts on that? Real quick.
I agree, basically. I mean, ABC, as far as all news in the media needs to be a little bit more unbiased. And I guess they're having a hard time hearing it in the chat. So I don't know if we can reiterate a little bit here and there as we go along here.
And I sent you in the private chat a quick article that kind of covers this one portion as well that we can just browse at, because there's a lot of articles coming out right now regarding these this starting with this question and the next like 3 or 4 because it is newsworthy, and it's interesting to hear. This guy had a very well thought out question. I only showed like the second half of it, but he was very concerned, and they basically, like you said, Andre, it's there's no bias to see here. Move on. It's just it's unfortunate. It makes me feel like we're going to get a lot more of the same, and it's sad.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit about like when we had this discussion in our local media, because let's make one thing clear. I'm not going to be here from above coming to judge American media. Our media is a bunch of crap too. Only in a slightly different way. A couple of years back, there was like someone that was like concerned about, well, 90% of the journalists are, if not outright communists, then socialists. Isn't this a problem for the coverage? Nah, it's fine. We agree that it's fine. The media said themselves. And this is kind of like the same thing. Here's the person representing the accused organization just saying, that's fine, there's no bias. Based on what? So, yeah, that was a troubling dismissal.
Yeah. I'm trying to pull up this article for the people who couldn't hear. There was, unfortunately, there was an issue with Tom pulling it up. I'm going to see if I can get it on my end real quick. Let's see here. Deadline just did one regarding this specifically.
They don't like to work well together.
Sorry about
Tech
that.
issues are so funny. Don't you love live shows?
Well, that's why we got the lovely
sharing
Candy
it right
to help
now.
us out here.
I'm trying.
She's on top of this
I'm
shit.
not as quick as you guys.
No, you're quicker on this.
But okay. So let's see if I can get this a little bit bigger. in the first question. So yeah, this was the very first question, and basically he says, I think ABC News has a stellar track record. This is what the new CEO Bob 2.0 said, for those who couldn't hear it. At a stellar track record of being being objective, I guess it's trying to say, and reporting the news, and it will continue in the future. That is the answer to the question about the Project Veritas report suggesting that Main Street News coverage of President Trump was overwhelmingly negative for ABC. It also referenced the company's reporting on Mr. Jeffrey after posted a video in which Amy Robach is caught in a hot mic moment complaining that the network did not go with an interview she landed with one of his accusers. So that was the main question in regards to, and then there was just concern about ABC with that in mind. So I just wanted to touch on that for those who could not hear that earlier. All right, so let me get back up to the next question here. So if I can pull it up. Doop, doop. Oh, I need to get the audio. Sorry, I keep forgetting. Why do they even do that? It should be defaulted with StreamYard. Just default this.
Maybe in a
share
future
the audio
update.
every time. I would love that if it would just do that. Ridiculousness. Okay, share. Boop. There. Nope. Didn't work again. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I don't see any shared audio.
Chrome
just yet, so.
tab.
That's all right. We'll get there.
All right, here we go. This one worked. All right. So the next one's going to cover LGBTQ issues, of course. So yeah, this one's kind of interesting, and let's see if I can get it there.
We've heard a lot about diversity, which is important. And Disney is a company that represents communities all around the world. Now, there are families like mine. We grew up with Disney. We love Disney. We want to introduce, our families to Disney's product. We want to trust your brand, but we no longer feel safe. At a time when your stock is down by 20%, is it perhaps time to reconsider what you can do to make Disney more family friendly, to make it safe for people around the world, not just one particular minority? And also, what would you say to those 700,000 people who signed our petition saying, please, let's not have the gay prides in the Disneyland parks?
Well, thank you for your question. At Disney, we strongly believe that we should reflect in our creative content the diversity that we find in our fan base and with our audience. And I believe that will continue with an increased commitment as we move forward. We want to represent our audience. We believe we want to tell stories that our audience wants to hear that reflects their lives. Secondly, in terms of the stock price, I think there's a lot of reasons why the stock price might be down 20% and has nothing to do with the issue that you raised. Might have more to do with coronavirus and the worldwide pandemic that we're facing. But thank you for your question.
So that was quite a nice way to end. She's clearly upset in how she prefaced her question, because she wants to share her family, she wants to share Disney with her family, and expresses her concerns and likens it to some of the negative stock trends, which of course we can all agree is partially due to coronavirus. Was that part of the question? No, it was not. But that was the way he ended it. So what say y'all?
I say that's a pretty bad deflection of the real issue. Well, first of all, let's address the lady first. I don't know how common it is that you talk about being safe, but I just have to say that just sends shivers down my spine in the worst possible way when I just hear that kind of complaint worded in that way. Like, oh, I don't feel safe. Give me trigger warning. That's, oh God, no matter where you are in the political scale, I can't stand language like that. That aside, his answer was a pure deflection. And it was basically just like the same thing from the usual playbook. I'm not going to address the issue itself or anything, but basically he dismissed the question with the standard playbook answer about representation and everyone needs to see themselves and stories that yada yada yada. And the end result is that a very, very, very tiny minority is giving massive over-representation. That's kind of what we're seeing here. That's my hot take on it. And again, this is a question from a paying shareholder that I thought was dismissed outright a little bit too fast. It's something that should be discussed more thoroughly among the shareholders.
There was no empathy to him. Into her position. I'm just sorry. I didn't want to cut you off. I just that was the thing. It made me upset. Didn't even not even a little bit. Yeah. Sorry, Tom.
No. I mean, part of her question is very valid. The other part of it was kind of I'm not even sure what she was saying in the beginning. Mm-hmm. But I mean, obviously, none of us up front have any problem with any gay characters for that matter. Right. But the big question, and we brought this up last night on the High Council, is do gay characters necessarily belong in children's entertainment? And if they are, in what capacity? And, we talked about it, and it seemed like most people in the audience agreed that, it's fine to have gay characters, but you don't really need to have it be much more than that. You don't need to get into the whole logistics of it all, because you open up a bunch of questions that even, straight parents don't want to have to answer as far as, straight sex with their kids at that age, let alone having to explain the, without a better for a lack of better term, ins and outs of, homosexuality love, and all that kind of stuff, and how long of a conversation that will wind up being now, let alone just uncomfortable for a parent. But again, at what point does the line need to be drawn? And we brought this up. We talked about how Bert and Ernie, for years and years and years and years, you had this thing. Are they gay or are they not gay? And it finally got to a point where it's like, no, they're just friends. Get over it. Right. Well, then last couple of years, they were putting that question out there again. It's like, well, what's wrong with if they are gay? It's like, that's not the point. And I've had a lot of gay friends that are older say the same thing. It's like, we fought for years to defeat that stupid stereotype that just because they live together that they're gay. And now people are perpetrating it again. It was like, it was fine just to have them be friends. And I agree with what they said. As far as like Sesame Street goes and things of kids entertainment, the farthest you really need to take that kind of a thing is so-and-so has two mommies or so-and-so has two daddies, and that's it. You don't need to go any farther than that. That's really about the extent you need to take it.
Yeah. And what I will say is that how far they should take it, that's kind of like beyond the scope of this particular podcast, and I'm not going to pass any judgment.
Well, no, I know, but that's the whole thing.
But I will
children's entertainment, though, it doesn't need to be there, really.
Yeah, but what I will pass judgment on is how easily, again, this is something that was dismissed. So here now we have two very valid questions and points from shareholders that are just dismissed outright with bullshit statements.
Yeah. Oh, and it gets real good here in the next few. For those again that may not have heard exactly, the speaker or the shareholder who asked the question was referring to the way in which they currently promote LGBT ideology in many of their products for children. It's increasing. We saw the 1 Million Moms banning the Onward movie because of that. There's been issues with the New Mutants on Marvel's side. There's been some stuff about that going on, and it's becoming something that is notable for families that are concerned to bring up. And it wasn't something that the Bobs decided to really talk much about, other than to say, basically, like bounding into comics headlines here, that they will have an increased commitment to them moving forward. So that's where we are with that.
Yeah, so that's what you all wanted to hear.
Oh, because, Pixar's been doing so well since they Me Too'd Lasseter out the door over some hugs. But anyway, because we had this conversation the other night too. I said, name me one Pixar movie from the last 5 years that you remember. And all anybody could remember was sequels. They couldn't remember any of the original films. So I said, that's the problem right there.
Yep.
And one of the ironies is that one of the core reasons to buy Pixar in the first place was to get Lasseter and have him run Disney's division. And with him gone, then that was loads of value lost right there. That's the...
And I those are rumors. I don't know the exact, what happened, but all I could find in my digging through everything was that he just liked to hug people.
Yeah, there was no grabbing or anything like that that we have been able to find.
There's more to it, but I'm not going to get into it. But it has nothing to do with sexual stuff so much more as, I think for this podcast, I'm going to stay out of it.
Again, it's beyond the scope of this podcast. What troubles me more here is basically their dismissal of shareholder concerns. Because a company, the one thing that they have to answer to is the shareholders above everything. And when you have shareholders, even if they are minority shareholders, they shouldn't be dismissed that outright.
I mean, they elected them, and they re-elected all of the current board again today with strong numbers, so nearly unanimously. So everybody who has been on the board is now continuing to reign, and for better or for worse, that's where it's going to stand.
So they will get their wish. Shareholder protests be damned, but that's
and that's what I've been saying all this time is the shareholder. The entertainment industry can keep pushing their narratives, but in the end of the day, they have to answer to shareholders and investors, and sooner or later, there's not going to be any money there. And we keep seeing it through all these films, and Chapek can come up with whatever freaking excuses he wants, but this Onward movie, which nobody even really cares about to begin with, and they tried to promote with this LGBT relationship, it's probably going to be one of the lowest grossing Pixar movies in history when it's all said and done.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll see how it turns out. Again, I'll get back with some final notes about that later on. But everyone has a vote on that, and there's only so long they can get away with things if they aren't making the money. And the whole reason that they are, or at least they should be, going this direction is because they think it's going to give more value to the bottom line. If it doesn't, then shareholders can only stand for it for so long. But moving on, Candice.
Did y'all want to touch on some of the super chats before? And the next one's kind of a doozy, and I didn't know if any of the super chats might pertain to what we've been talking about.
We only got a few, so we could probably grab them real quick. Mexican Iron Man sent us $9.99. Everyone in the fandom menace should buy 1 to 5 shares of stock individually or with buddies. We would be a shareholder block, and at that point, we'd truly be a fandom that would pose a serious menace. I'm not going to suggest that. I know some people who already do own stock in Disney. I'm obviously not going to out them here, but I mean, that's a possibility. What do you think, Andre, since that's your domain, kind of?
You could do that, but you couldn't do that and be a powerful block. That's going to take a little bit more shares than what the fandom menace, even if they all banded together, is going to be able to muster.
Right, because isn't that how these things are set up, is to where it's like the shares are so small that you have to have so many before it's even really worth it?
Yes, that is entirely correct. So if anyone has like a rich uncle or a couple of tens of millions to donate, then yeah, sure. But failing that, then do it, but then do it as an investment object, not as something that you think that this is going to give you a super voice. Just because you spend like $5 or $20 or a couple of $100 on Disney shares, that's not going to give you any kind of say in how they run their operation.
Right. And again, not to discourage anybody, but I think that by the time anybody would even be able to make any kind of difference off this kind of a situation, a lot of things will have probably already changed. I mean, we're talking, it would take you probably years to make a dent and make to get noticed, and you almost have to do like campaigns and stuff like that.
It's going to have to require
something. Yeah. If you want to change something, you have a far, far better and faster way of doing it. And that is with the vote of your wallet and word of mouth. those are the two things that you can use to steer the company in the direction that you would like to see it. That's basically support every aspect of their business that you like, where you think they're on the right track. Which is why I say everyone should go out and buy Conan the Barbarian issue 13, the comic, right now, because it's on the right track. So go and support it. I just have to put that plug in there.
Or
So,
like
yeah.
people who went to see Sonic, for instance. Yeah.
Yeah, or people who went to see Sonic, because when you do that, then you put your consumer behavior and your consumer spending behind the direction that you want, and then you don't support the things that you don't want to see. Don't spend money on it. That's your vote. That's far more powerful than buying a few shares.
Yep, very much so.
Agree.
All right. Next one here we have is David Hervey, who sent us $10. You don't get in that position by showing empathy. Most of those people are narcissists, and all they see is numbers. They don't care about how people feel, sadly, until it's too late. Oh yeah, but that's where, I was saying sooner or later it's going to come crashing down, because when they realize that this woke business isn't making any money. And again, we want to reiterate, we have nothing against diversity. We have nothing against, the LGBT community. None of that is a problem. It's in its proper place, is what I was saying before too. You can make tons and tons of movies like Brokeback Mountain, and I have no issues with that. That's not what I'm talking about. But I get where, we don't want these political agendas in our family entertainment, our fantasy entertainment where it doesn't necessarily fit, and it just takes you out of your fantasy, as opposed to, I don't care what sexuality an alien is, to be honest with you. It doesn't bother me. That's my, and it's the same thing with this movie with Onward. I don't care. They're trolls or whatever, but again, is it worth the bottom line? And the stockholders are the ones who get to, sooner or later, are going to vote you out if you don't do what they think if you don't think they're interested at heart, I mean, and that's the thing, is money's the bottom line here, and what makes money nowadays. I mean, Andre, you know how that is in business.
Oh, absolutely. I also have to say that as someone from a more international point of view, I know that many in my neck of the woods finds it very, very annoying when we are forced the ideological political perspective that is super popular in this very limited area in LA, and this is then broadcast upon the rest of the world. It's very visible, and it's not convincing, let's say.
Yeah. It's a narrow view of the world, straight out of there.
Narrow view.
It is.
Very narrow view. And we see that. You see how things are, Onwards, for instance, was banned in, well, of course, that's another extreme, that was like banned in Saudi Arabia or something. And there's, again, it should be said that it's a very low threshold to be banned there. Or that one of those, maybe not the best example, but the point is that this message that they're trying to send is not going to go well everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I agree. It's just it's interesting just to see, because again, when we brought in the new creative heads and stuff like that I was interested to see who's going to take over Bob's position in the park, and seeing how Bob's, because there's not a whole lot of background beyond the park management that Bob had. So it's interesting now to get a good glimpse at what his perspective is with this. But now we can all say we're not surprised. So,
And to David's original point, it's true. To rise to the position of CEO, especially of a company that size, having some narcissistic or even borderline psychopathic tendencies, because the difference is that typically men are psychopaths where women are narcissists, although sometimes they can overlap. But those traits are absolutely an advantage to becoming a CEO. This is a known psychological fact. Moving on.
Well, and side note, his son, Brian. I don't know if your chat already knows this. Probably they do because they're so well informed on this channel. But his son is working directly with Feige, his son Brian Chapek is the one that co-produced both Black Widow and Thor Ragnarok. So nepotism. Also,
absolutely
a very
no
important
nepotism
trait
at all.
Also, an important trait, perhaps, for CEOs of Disney. So, yeah, just thought I'd throw that out there. A little interesting tidbit.
It's a fun little tidbit.
Yeah. So, moving on to the next topic of lack of creativity in Disney. See if I can.
We should reflect.
Let's see if I can.
I'm
going to see if I can.
From Bob Iger.
There we go.
That is, storytelling is at the heart of everything you do. When you get the stories right, everything else flows from that. So pay most attention to the creative product and just make sure we tell stories that reflect the entire diversity of the audiences that we speak to.
So real quick, that was the ending of a previous question that a young woman had asked if she ever becomes a CEO for Disney, what's one thing that Bob can tell her advice-wise? And it was know how to tell a good story. So there you go. And this is the beginning of the next one.
The funny thing is she thinks she's going to be CEO.
Oh yeah, she was praising the Mulan movie, and then went into, if I was the next CEO, what would you want to say to me? And it was all about just narration, just good storytelling.
Because I mean, let's be honest and clear here. They talk, like Mr. Colbert, diversity. They talk it up a lot, but guess what? It's mostly white men destroying all these franchises, and they allow them to do it, no problem. They have no problem with a white man running all the business here, but we're the problem because we
white
say
men named Bob.
Yeah.
Multiple. All right, here we go. The next one.
My name's Caroline Farrow, and
sorry. Let me push forward here. Sorry, I had that wrong. Let's see, 3350. Here we go.
My name's Rick Vandermoss, and I'm just a single shareholder. Mr. Iger, I thank you for. I've been Cayman shareholder in 2007. But I have three concerns. One, I am also a Formula One fan. This is kind of point of personal privilege. I'm a Formula One fan, and since ESPN took over Formula One, they haven't failed to disappoint. I don't get to watch, they show the races, they show this, but they don't. When the talking starts at the end, you get a mother's commercial, and then you get a show highlighting a basketball team from 20 years ago. Can ESPN show the entire Sky broadcast? That's personal privilege. I worry about the stock price in that climbing back out of the hole that it's in on two main issues. Creativity. I worry about Pixar. The products that seem to be coming out of Pixar, I worry about. My kids grew up on Pixar. They loved all the stuff that came out in the 90s in Pixar, and I just don't see that sort of, Toy Story 4 was good, but it's another remake. The new creativity, I'm worried about the new creativity and what it's doing. Star Wars, I'm 16 years old when 1977, I've been a Star Wars fan my entire life. I worry about that too, going forward. And the other thing I worry about that affects the stock price, the parks, maintenance, imagination at the park, the creativity, Toy Story Land, what was initially proposed versus what was built. The Star Wars Land, I haven't been there, but it looks fantastic. Toy Story Land looks, I'm worried, like maintenance. Take the monorails, for instance. They should have been replaced 5 or 6 years ago. And now they're a constant maintenance headache, costing tons of money. I worry about creativity. I worry about cost. The company was built on Walt's creativity and Roy's practicality.
So I just want to stop there for a second before we get to the answer. I love what he said there, that the company was built on Walt's creativity and Roy's it's just, and when he continues here.
And I'm worried that a little too much these days is Roy, not enough Walt.
I thought that was very poignant. So I love that. I've seen that tweet going around a bit today, and it was very well said.
But I really
I agree.
appreciate what you're
Fantastic
doing.
said.
I just, thank you for letting me get that off my chest, and thank you very much.
Okay, so we have Formula One, Pixar, Star Wars,
And parks.
Parks and Resorts. I'll let you go first.
Well, there's Bob Iger. I know that
All right,
voice.
I'll help you.
I'll leave you with.
You're doing a good job.
I'll leave you with Formula One. As you might suspect, most of our energy, and now almost essentially all of your energy, is going to be directed towards making that engine, that creative engine, across all those franchises, as powerful as possible. And I think, when you manage the creative process, you want to make sure that you give enough degrees of freedom to creatives to do what you pay them to do. And what they do best is to be creative. And sometimes, we hit it out of the park, and sometimes we hit a double. And I think our goal is obviously to increase the number of times that we hit it out of the park. But I can tell you that the creative engine at Pixar is alive and well. I can tell you that the creative engine at Lucas is alive and well. Now, as it pertains to the parks and, the Walt Roy, as you said, I thought that was great in terms of the balance. We're always striving to tell great storytelling in a very physical way in our parks and resorts. And I think it's unprecedented, the amount of investment that we've made over the last 5 years. Matter of fact, it's almost double what it was the previous 5 years in terms of capital investment, things that we're spending in our parks. And when we do that, once again, we have to reflect the totality of our audience. Toy Story is different than Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Toy Story is targeted towards a very young audience, because we have to make sure that our very youngest guests are pleased as well. And it might not have all the whiz-bang elements of Star Wars, but Star Wars is there for their fans, and Toy Story is there for their fans. So we try to balance it out and take the money that the board of directors have allocated for us to try to take our experiences and make them better and better every year, so we leave you with those magical memories that last a lifetime.
We also, we never tell our teams to build something cheap. We tell them to make it great. And we ask them what it's going to cost to do so. And of course, we always manage the bottom line at our company. We've been doing that forever. But the number one goal is to make something that is going to wow audiences time and time again. And I think we've done that. On one more thing on the creative side, we'll pass your comments along to ESPN on Formula One. I haven't watched their coverage lately, so I can't really comment. But Pixar has always been a blend of making we're telling original stories and doing sequels. And they've made some great original stories. I can think of Inside Out and Up, just to name a few. Actually, they were all original at one point. We're also proud of a lot of the sequels that we've done, including Toy Story 4, which won the Academy Award for the Best Animated Film. And we've got 2 originals this year. Onward, which just came out. I thought it was a pretty good film. And Soul, which comes out this summer, that Pete Docter directed. So there'll always be a blend. And as Bob said, we always aim to hit a home run. Sometimes we hit doubles, but overall, the quality of the creativity at the company, I think, is exceptional. You just look at the things that we showed this morning, which is just one small part of everything that's being made at the company across all of our businesses. I don't think there's another company in the world, actually, that creates as much greatness as we do.
Andre, that narcissism. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. Indeed.
So there, I'm just gonna end it there.
Well, I mean, we can't really take away from Bob that, yeah, he did, repair that bridge with Pixar. He did bring Marvel to the fold, but he's also allowed Star Wars to be a $4.5 billion flop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bob Iger, I think, has done much like his predecessor, Eisner. He did absolutely fantastic in the beginning of his rule, but then towards the end of it is when the mistakes started to happen, and maybe he stayed on for a little bit too long. Maybe he should have had the change of guards a little bit earlier on. Maybe
that could have been it, but
yeah.
Bob Iger didn't have a Katzenberg either. That's what Eisner had, and when Eisner lost Katzenberg, that's when everything kind of fell apart. If you ask me,
exactly, and also, well, it should be said though that Iger, Katzenberg, yeah, that's true. That's where things really started falling apart. So he really messed that up. He should have found a better solution for that. But anyway, about the comments here. First, about the guy asking a question, I have two things to say. First, point of personal privilege. I would like to smack everyone that uses the term point of personal privilege in the fucking face.
Agreed.
Open fist. Like, not closed fist, but like open fist, good smack in the face. Because you need to wake the fuck up.
I've never heard Andre talk like that.
Fucking talk like that.
I am straight as hell, but I'm turned on now a little bit.
Like,
I'm surprised it took a Disney shareholders meeting to do it too.
yeah, I mean, these are fucking adults in a shareholder meeting, and you go and you say, point of personal privilege. This is a Disney shareholder meeting. It's a corporation. I mean, this isn't asking people not clapping at the convention of National Social Democrats or something where that kind of thing would be acceptable. That aside, though, he made some very, very good points. There were some very fair questions, and to their credit, they actually went about answering them. But again, the answers were very much playbook and the PR spin answers, kind of like dismissing the whole thing, dismissing that there's a problem, which is a recurring thing. So it's like, again, this also illustrated the issue. He said, like, right away, I'm just one shareholder. Well, how much value do you have? Evidently not enough to be taken seriously, because they completely sidelined everything. He's like, okay, fine, we'll let you talk, and we'll bypass all your questions. Some of them will answer well. The others, the real questions, you're gonna get the PR answer, and then we're gonna move on.
Yeah, I didn't hear much about the issue behind the lack of creativity, specifically about the constant remix of things, the constant, the inability to create a unique product again. I didn't hear anything about that, except that sometimes we hit it out of the park and sometimes we like hit a double. Well, sometimes you strike out, Disney, and you got to like just leave a franchise alone and try to start at the ground zero again and build something up new. It's a sad thing, if you say Disney, what once was I would say people probably imagined that first to their mind when they thought of creativity and imagination. And now here we are, shareholders saying there's not enough of it. Sad.
Yeah, especially when then Disney is supposed to be the home of that. And then Iger sidestepped it and tried to use that as an excuse. But it's like, no, seriously, the last few years you've been creatively bankrupt. What has Disney done? Nothing. They have done nothing original in so long. It's the same thing I had with the argument with JJ when, people are like, oh, he's a good director. It's like, but what has he done? He's done nothing original. His most original thing he's done was Super 8 that everybody says was a rip-off of Spielberg movie. So
yeah.
And it sucked.
Exactly. So it was bad at that. Let's get through a couple more of these super chats real quick. Yeah. Sister Harrow sent us a $5 Australian super chat, and it was a super sticker, and it was a pear lying on its side, raising its arms while saying, "How's it going?" Well, it's going very well, Sister Harrow. Great member of the audience. She's always supporting us with super chats. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Awesome.
And then we had Drive-By Commentator with $5. Let it burn. Disney's the reason the public domain in art and entertainment is starved. Well, yeah, and they even brought that up, how not once but twice now Disney has managed to push out Mickey from being in the public domain. How much longer do you think that's going to last, Andre? Or do you think they're going to find a way of saying, oh, it's our corporate logo, so what is they going to find some kind of loophole to keep Mickey theirs a little bit longer?
I don't know. I cannot say. It's really, they can do whatever the hell they want. So it's a matter of what do they want? What
no,
do they
I don't think they will.
Is best. I think that, I don't think they will.
Well, there's an answer for one of your questions earlier, Andre, was what do they lobby for? Right there is one of the things that Disney lobbies for. And that one lady even said it.
That is true.
And that is the extension of copyrights, because Disney does not want to lose any of their copyrights. And there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming up for public domain real soon.
Well, they just built.
They
the newest park attraction or ride that they just built was the Mickey and Minnie's Railroad, like railroad ride or something. And they've just reported. I read in a few articles that they haven't had stronger sales for Mickey and Minnie merchandise in years. So it might be getting a little bit of a surge at the moment. Anyway, I wouldn't see it going anywhere.
I will say this though also, that in the hypothetical event that they actually lose the copyright, then I think we're really going to see them use even more of Disney and of Mickey and Donald and all of those things, for the very reason to remind everyone this is the real things. Anyone else chooses to use it, that's like a copy. This is the real deal, is what I would imagine. So I think, now that I thought about it, I think they would use the Mickey more, not less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sort of like an ebb and flow of it coming back and leaving and coming back when the time is right, and maybe the time's right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Do you want to do the next one, Tom?
Yeah, we got one more super chat here, and then we can get back to the bit here, because it looks like there's not too much left of that anyway.
Nope.
Captain Harris sent us $5. I have returned. Please hold your applause. Wait, where's Rob? I have to make up for easy time. I have to make up for the easy time he's had due to my absence. Well, I'm sure you can get on Rob's nerves probably tomorrow night. I think we're gonna have something on the meet probably, or I'm sure he'll be around. So just keep on the lookout for him, and you can harass him then.
Donate a copy of Dune to him. He'd love that.
Oh. All right. Well, moving on to the minutes. The next one's going to be sort of regarding the how they pick and choose items to come out of the vault in terms of what would be offensive in today's day, versus back then. And so how some things may never again see the light of day. That's kind of where we're going with this. So I'm going to continue here.
Clappity clap, clap, clap.
Clap, clap.
Number one. Good morning, Bob and Bob.
My name is easy. We did this so that you could easily remember our names.
Yeah, diversity.
My name is Matthew Hansen. I'm a
Dad
shareholder
jokes.
from Salt Lake City. At last year's meeting, you, Mr. Iger, mentioned that Disney Plus would eventually have, quote, the entire Walt Disney Studios library. Currently, there are a lot of absences from the catalog, ranging from various short films to Victory Through Air Power to Follow Me Boys, and many more. What is the plan or timeline for the full catalog to be added to Disney Plus? Also, are there plans to add content such as Michael Eisner's Disney Sunday movie intros? And along with that, many have wondered after your comments, if when you said entire library, does that include Song of the South? And if not, why can't it be included with a similar disclaimer about containing outdated cultural depictions that currently accompanies many other titles on Disney Plus? I also thought that your book, The Ride of a Lifetime, was fantastic, and wondered if you'd sign my copy.
Kiss ass.
Yeah.
That's the easy one to answer. Yes. I'm glad to sign your copy. I think when I said the whole library, one of the things that we realized is that a lot of what was made in the past is not of the quality, just in terms of the quality of the film initially, when it's digitized, and we're working through some of that.
He's full of shit. Pause it a second.
Yeah, sure.
So much.
I'll tell you right now, there is a 35 millimeter print in 1080p HD available somewhere on the interwebs of Song of the South. So he can sit there and say it can't be updated all he fucking wants. He's full of shit.
Oh, he'll talk a little bit more about it.
They can have that movie out in 8K next week.
Exactly.
If they wanted to.
But they won't. We're gonna hear
They
why.
won't, but they could. They could.
Now, granted, the subject matter of the film aside, it's just, it's a sore spot for them, and they will never release it, ever.
But this will go to show where they can pick and choose what is acceptable culturally for your family to see. They put update. I'll talk about this a little bit more. I want to continue with the answer first, but I'll circle back.
Much that had to be digitized, so we couldn't get everything on. So I think in the end, when I said the entire library, it turns out not everything will be available because of some of those issues. I've felt, as long as I've been CEO, that Song of the South was, even with a disclaimer, was just not appropriate in today's world. That's actually true with some of the other things that we've made as well. It's just hard to, given the depictions in some of those films, to bring them out today without, in some form or another, offending people. So we've decided not to do that.
So offending some people, we decide not to do that. I get it. But they're going to pick and choose who gets offended with the movies they put out and through the vault, the ones they pick. And they have some movies that they have cultural, they put little disclaimers up about it. But, and for those in the chat that don't know, that song, that zippity doo dah, zippity day, that song, that's like an iconic Disney song. That's where it originated from, was the Song of the South movie. So what say you guys?
Kids will never know or understand that Fletch joke now.
No, they won't. That's well, of course, it's anyone that really wants Song of the South. It's out there on the high seas. Just remember to get your VPN in order, like for instance from Surfshark. Remember the code midnight. But anyway, yeah. Obviously Disney was never going to release that. When you have even Disney shareholders saying things like point to personal privilege, in that kind of world, no way the Song of the South is getting released. That whole thing is a hate crime, isn't it? Yeah, Tom.
Here's the thing. I've not really watched it in years. I seen it a long time ago. And I don't remember it being as bad as a lot of people are making it out. And Mecca says here, doesn't Song of the South actually humanize African-American in context of the time? Not so much that, but they tiptoe around the whole fact that he's a slave, I guess, or something like that.
Well, they were happy to some extent with the environment in which they were in, and that's the problem. If you don't have a revolt, then it's not a good movie to put out. You know what I mean? Like you can't depict that kind of plantation living where the white owners and the black slaves are content in their situation. So in this movie, it had that, but it also had deeper, complex themes that were that were important to the time. And
it's
it did humanize them.
That Mr. Uncle Ruckus would have approved of, and that means that Disney today cannot approve of it.
Again, I have, is it a movie I'd watch with kids? No, but I don't believe in any kind of censorship when it comes to that kind of stuff. The best thing about the Warner Brothers said is they had the balls to just release them as is, and you had Whoopi Goldberg come out there and say, look, yeah, these things have a lot of racist elements in them and things that were not proper now, but to ignore them is to act like they never existed. And that's kind of I think one of the biggest issues with a lot of the censorship that goes on, especially with Disney. Disney's really bad about this, and they've done it a couple times now. I've seen people complain about it on the Disney Plus situation, and it's like they're trying to erase that part of history. And a lot of the SJW crowd, that's one of their big things is if it's something that makes them uncomfortable, they don't think it should exist. They don't want to teach stuff even in history classes and stuff like that. Right. And I think that's the biggest problem as to why they have this feeling that there is no diversity or that there's this racist problem or anything like that. It's like, no, it's not. It's just that, we understand that came from a different time and that's not how we think now,
Ryan Landis has the best comment of the day, saying history is important to move forward.
Exactly.
Learning from the past is important. Exactly. That's the problem. When you try to deny the past, you're just going to redo it and ignore it. You have that, for instance, in Star Trek Discovery. Look at all the things that they think that they're the first to do. Things that were done decades ago.
Exactly.
Never happened because they think they do it first and it's some kind of like door opener or whatever, and couldn't be further from the truth. But anyway, I digress. Point is that, it didn't really matter the answer all that much on that one, actually. Basically, he could have been more honest and just said that, no, that's not going to fly today, and it hasn't flown for quite a few decades, so that's going to stay in the That's going to stay hidden along with many, many other things. But he dodged the most important part of the question, and that's giving a time scale for when everything that can be released, when is that
Exactly.
going to be released? He completely dodged the question, which I thought was
Yeah.
frustrating, because that's something that I want to know. When we're going to put out every single short there is, when you're going to put every single of
Yeah,
the
I was
Donald Duck
pissed
shorts
because
and
I
all
went
those
looking.
things.
Yeah, I went looking for. I can't remember the name of the bear, but yeah, there was one of the bear ones I went to look for, and it's not on there because they only have like 3 of them on there, and they don't have crap for any of the old Disney
Yeah,
shorts. Yeah.
Exactly.
I still think from a business point of view that when they say they were going to release all of them, I don't think they're going to do it like where you get the entire library at any single point. I think to maintain the interest in their Disney Plus memberships, that they will have partial releases and then those will go away. They'll bring in another part, like it'll be large chunks, but it will be alternating kind of things so that people are having to come back if they want, something else.
Yeah.
That's just
like
my
this.
opinion. That's my guess.
We might as well get the super chat since it's we're caught up on them. Dr. Jagus sent us $5. How about releasing the Star Wars Holiday Special on Disney Plus? Everyone knows Carrie has a copy. Pry it from her cold fingers and put it on AK to it. I don't know if she does, but her mom might have. Her mom was a hell of a collector, so that's very. I'm sure there's a decent version out there. I mean, there's good versions on YouTube, but I mean, there's probably a film copy somewhere in existence.
Yeah,
Probably,
George Lucas said
probably.
he would smash it if he ever saw it anywhere. Smash it with a hammer. That's what he said. He is quoted saying that.
Yeah, so what you do then is you remaster it and digitize it away from him, and then you smuggle away the original copy, and then that's
John
like the
Favreau is
thing.
quoted as saying that he's very interested in redoing it, of course. So probably going to have a remake of that Christmas or that holiday
that-
special on Disney Plus in the near future.
Yeah, that actually wouldn't surprise me too much, actually, if they were to do that. But still, about like what's gonna come out on Disney Plus, I will say, those of you that have your steelbooks, the Walt Disney Treasures that I do, stick on to those, because many of those things there, many of those shorts and that kind of content, like the stuff that they actually put out on DVD, the World War II propaganda shorts and stuff like that, I don't think that they're ever going to be out on Disney Plus. So stick to the stuff that you already have, let's say. Always preserve physical media for that reason, because everything that they have on a digital platform, if they put it out to begin with, they can take away at a moment's notice. So if you want to have your own library, then have a physical one.
And you're supposed to be able to download from Disney Plus, but as far as I know, you can only do it on like phones and tablets and stuff. I've not found a way to be able to do it on like my PS4, which to me kind of, again, is another lie. And at least he admitted to the one lie that they don't have everything on there like he said they were going to.
Yeah. Well, basically, you can download it, but you can download it to another device where you cannot transfer it to, for instance, your hard drive, so that you have it and you can put it into whatever format on whatever future device you want. You can have it, but you can have it only on that device, on that profile, and if Disney wants you to not have it anymore, then you won't have it anymore, because basically you don't own it, you're just renting it.
Oh yeah, and that's something I've said about all digital media, trying to warn people. And I understand, having a physical media collection can take up a lot of space and all that kind of stuff. But again, they can't take that away from you. What they can take away from you is any kind of digital copy. It can be gone tomorrow and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And I think they appreciate having that degree of control.
Oh, of course
to say the
they do.
least. So,
Absolutely.
That's something
Absolutely.
they've wanted for all time. That's why the movie companies were real leery about getting on board with VHS to begin with and all that kind of, or home video to begin with, because it was VHS and beta at first. But yeah, because they don't want you to have any kind of control over your movies, and or their movies anyway. They don't want, you to be able to make copies or have that on your own. They want to control when you watch it and pay. And Disney was bad about that all the time. So
Yeah, they were really bad about that. That's one of the reasons why they supported Blu-ray over HD DVD back in the day, because Blu-ray had better copy protection, which of course was broken really quickly anyway, so fat lot of good that did. But yeah. But anyway, guys, just to round things up then, to summarize what we've spoken about today. So there was like this investor meeting with Disney. There's many of them lately, and they got some very, very tough and very good questions, and they kind of dismissed them. And the ones that they didn't dismiss, they didn't really answer. I mean, the guy, he evidently got his book signed, so that's something, but we didn't get the answer that we wanted.
Yeah.
So in the end, then, I just want to have all of your hot takes on what do we think of their handling of these questions as a whole, and what does that say for what we can expect from Bob number 2, Chapek? Geek Candy, you're the one that did all the research here, and kudos, you've done some amazing detective work finding all of these great clips. So, your thoughts? What's your takeaway from all of this?
I'm bummed. I really am. I'm an optimist at heart. It's one of my downfalls, perhaps, when it comes to Disney. But I really thought that perhaps I really thought that maybe with the shift, the change up at the top, that perhaps there would be enough change behind it to follow. And as we can see, they reelected the entirety of the rest of the board. That speaks against that. The comments that Bob 2.0 clearly gave about a lot of this speaks to a lot of the same of what we've already come to expect with Disney. And it seems that, again, when Bob was asked about what would you tell this little girl who wants to be CEO? Tell the good story. Why doesn't he take his own advice there and make that the priority of Disney again? I feel like you're every single time we have something coming out, it's meant to fill up so many niches and boxes of so many different types of people that the story in and of itself is muddied to a point where it lacks depth. And then it falls to the wayside. And how many times does it have to happen? And it gets me upset because I used to love Disney, and now it's an afterthought, and that's just where we are, and this confirmed it for me. That's it.
Yeah. Fred Leggett says, can you believe there was a time when Disney was damn near bankrupt? It's really funny that you mentioned that. I'm working on an interview right now that hopefully will be up in the next week or so where that subject is actually brought up. That yes, there was a time in the 80s, especially, where Disney was ready to go belly up. Funny enough, and I talked to Gary Wolf, the man who wrote Who Censored Roger Rabbit, and he talks about how when they bought his film, Disney was pretty much ready to go bankrupt or bought his story to make a film.
And that wasn't the first time.
And that wasn't the first time. Yeah. So, and it took 8 years to get that movie made because of that kind of crap. So we get into that in that interview, and it's a very interesting interview. So hopefully everybody will get a chance to hear that soon. But my feelings on this, man, it was a bunch of just tiptoeing and sidestepping. I don't know if everybody here, I doubt it, is familiar with the musical Best Whorehouse in Texas, but the mayor who does the sidestepping song, that's all I could hear Bob and Bob singing was the sidestepping song. Because that's all they did was just, we're doing this, and we've always been this, and we're always going to do that. And I don't understand how these shareholders keep voting these people in if this is the way they talk to them. This is worse than politicians. I mean, I know we got a little political earlier, but that's why, is because this shit does get so political sometimes, and even to the point where within themselves they're even lying, like the old, like Bill Murray says in Ghostbusters 2, ain't you supposed to lie to me and kiss my butt because I'm a voter? It's like, there wasn't much lying.
He should try that with Joe Biden, see how that goes.
But yeah, all right, I'm going to turn it over to Andre now, because Captain Harris sent $2 and says, quick, Andre, speak Norwegian to me.
Fort, javel. There, that was quick in Norwegian.
The unrelenting one sent us $1.99. Low key, he called them a liar.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I did.
Pretty much. That was hilarious. Tom, I just have to ask you one thing real quick.
Yeah.
Because I've been distracted ever since you mentioned that movie title, The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. That's the one with Burt Reynolds and Dolly Parton.
Yes.
In which the song I Will Always Love You
exactly
premiered, right?
Yes.
Damn, I'm good.
It's actually one of my personal favorites, but yes, sadly.
Anyone surprised? Just saying.
Hey, I've got the Blu-ray, the DVD, the LP, the CD.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
I saw it on TV like 30 years ago.
Oh, so you saw the Chop to Hell version?
No, I saw it on TV in Norway.
Oh, then they didn't chop nothing.
Yeah. I remember like the first time I was in America and Life of Brian was on TV, and I was like in shock. What the hell is this censorship?
He's not a savior. He's just a naughty boy.
That's when I learned that movies on TV in America is different. They're longer, but they don't have any of the good stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
Yeah, that's just to pad out the timing sometimes.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, with that, I think that we can round things out. So I'd like to thank you, Candy, for coming to join us and share all of this. I'm not going to call it shenanigans, but certainly worrisome insight into how Disney operates. And it seems very much that Disney operates how Disney wants to operate. And shareholder concerns be damned, at least for the time being.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for having me again. I really appreciate it. I was planning to do this on my channel, but if I get an invite by Andre, who am I to refuse? So glad for the invite and really enjoyed talking about it with you guys. Very much so.
Oh, well, thanks. Thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, yeah, and I guess I missed this. Sorry about that, Jay. Drunk 3PO, he just sent me this a little bit ago. He says, Tom, they have a Splash Mountain ride, which is themed around that movie. They play the theme song and have giant dance numbers at the end of the ride. They play that song throughout the park, which is Zippity Doo Dah from, is what he's referring to from Song of the South. So, yeah.
And the kids will never know where it came from because Disney doesn't want you to know.
Yeah, that's actually funny because we have a theme park in Norway. It's called Tusenfryd. So there, Captain, you got another Norwegian word. And I actually worked there in my younger days for like 3 summers. And that's actually one of the songs that was in the background there as well.
Yeah, it gets around.
Yeah, absolutely does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah. Good times, good times. Anyway, on behalf of all of us, I'd like to say thanks for joining us. Geeky, where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at Geeky Candy. I post a lot of stuff, a lot of breaking things. As soon as I find out about it, it usually goes there first. And then if I have time, I put a video of it on my YouTube channel at Geeky Candy. I have an Instagram as well that I give a little attention to here and there. Some stuff you might not see on Twitter. And I'm also on Midnight's Edge Monday nights with Toxic Femininity, the Gal Squad plus Tom. Great times. We have a lot of great discussions. If you haven't seen that show yet, please stop by next Monday. We'd love to have you and see what you got to say about it in the chat. And then, I'm also on Geeks and Gamers too. I do videos for them as well, along with Park Hoppin'. So a little bit all over the place, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And
we got
another super chat. Tom, you take it.
No, I can, but I was going to let you do it. But Unrelenting One sent us $1.99, said, love you guys and love Geeky Candy. Well, thank you so much.
Point of personal privilege. Just kidding.
Andre Smash.
There you go. Yeah. I love it. You got to end it with that.
Don't kick stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. It's gonna probably more like Andre Smack rather than Andre Smash, but unless that means something else, come to think of it. But didn't sound very good when I heard it. Well, yeah. Oh, anyway, that's awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And with that, we're gonna call it the day, at least for now. Tom, where can people find you, and when can they find you next time?
Well, you can always find me here, of course, and if not here, on Midnight's Edge After Dark. That is the sister channel to Midnight's Edge. It is a separate channel. We do live streams just about every other day there at 6 p.m. on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, usually. 6 p.m. Central, I should say, to be clear.
Yeah. And with that, everyone, thanks for joining us. Bye.